Okay. I'd like to call the April 4th Tree Board meeting, call it to order. If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I think we're expecting Debbie, so she'll just join us. We haven't been, I believe she's going to be here, so she'll just arrive when she arrives. The minutes from the March 7th meeting are in our packet. Does anyone have any questions or notice anything that needs to be changed or amended? I have one minor item under Section 8, comments. In the first line, David Flincham stated that he asked for the tree board to meet on April 4th or to a meeting on April 4th. Either one, I think, would be correct. Other than that, I don't see anything else. So if no one else has any corrections, may I have a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
Madam President, I motion that we approve the minutes of the last meeting as amended.
I'll second that.
Charles seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed unanimously. The next item on our agenda was to be new business, proposed landscape manual workshop. We've been informed that this is being postponed, so it will not be discussed at today's meeting, and I don't believe that there is a set date at this time, and we will be notified at some future date when that will convene.
That is correct. David Flincham did reach out to me and wanted me to pass along to the board that if there was anything that you noticed in the proposed landscape manual and any of the code revisions he's given you in the packet, that go ahead and pass those along to him via email. So
Okay.
no need to wait to express anything.
Okay, so we've all received them at this time, and we should review them, and if we have questions or notice anything, then email with those inquiries. To David?
You can do it to David or to myself or Chris, and we'll pass them along
Okay.
to David.
So you don't want those suggestions right now, you want us to email?
That would probably be best. Email is probably best.
Okay.
So Brian, it looks like you're up next with staff updates.
I think you received the recent plantings on the last meeting we had not too long ago. You should have received that list in your packet. The very top says 160 trees planted since last board meeting.
Received it in the packet for today or from the last packet?
From the last packet.
I don't know, I have the last packet here, I'm actually not seeing it in there.
Okay, I'll read through the list quickly then. Since the last official meeting, last quarter, we've planted 160 trees. 20 bald cypress at the dog park, 7 bald cypress at Yarmouth Park, 7 bald cypress on Binks Forest Drive medians, 12 pink cassias near the Palm Beach Point entryway on the backside of the dog park, 5 live oak trees on Green Shores medians, 3 live oaks on Forest Hill medians, 1 live oak in Mystic Park, 3 Shady Lady Black Olives in Block Island Park, 5 Shady Lady Black Olives on the Forest Hill open space just east of the boat ramp. It's right where those townhouses are along Forest Hill. 1 Gumbo Limbo in the Quercus cul-de-sac, 1 Gumbo Limbo on the South Shore Extension median, 2 Slash Pines on the South Shore Extension median as well, 85 Sables at the Village Park storage site. That's the big maintenance area where we have a lot of the materials. We're doing a buffer planting there to replace a very large ficus hedge that toppled over in Irma. Also included in that buffer project are 30 red cedar and 14 green buttonwood. So that's 195 trees total because 35 sables were just planted yesterday.
I have a question.
Sure.
Planting that many trees, what impact is this drought? I mean, we're not getting any rain, and you're planting all these new trees. Are they being irrigated, or are they just good luck?
No, it's not. We don't throw them to the wind. They are irrigated. They have bubblers or emitters directly on the base of the tree, so it's very specific to that tree.
Okay, I know because at Buena Vita, we had to plant new trees in over 200 homes, and they've been watering every day and sometimes twice a day for these new small trees to make sure they survive. And I'm just thinking, planting so many trees on such a large scale with no rain.
I imagine they're doing the same thing there in your community. They have if you look towards at the base of the tree, there should be a very small bubbler.
Yes,
Right.
but they're watering once to twice a day.
Right. So with that, you only have to run the irrigation for just a couple of minutes to give
Okay.
it a soaking. So it's it's not wasteful by any means.
Okay, thank you.
Brian, the Shady Lady olive trees, is that a specific kind of olive tree? Because the olive trees get really big.
Right. There's the regular black olive, which gets
Huge.
very large, and then there's very small spiny black olive, and the Shady Lady is a cross between those two varieties, so it ends up being what I'd call a large to medium sized tree. It's not quite as large as that big regular black olive tree. It's a very attractive tree, good canopy tree.
Yeah, because I planted the wrong olive tree, and it got huge. It's
Right.
costing me a lot of money to trim it, because they have to get up in a bucket truck.
Right.
It's too tall for you to manually take care of it.
Yeah. The Shady Lady might get a bit out of the range for the typical homeowner to get at with a pole saw, but we're equipped
Okay.
to prune them.
And Brian, were some of those trees recently planted replacements of trees that were in that spot that were either damaged because of Irma or other reasons?
Yes, they were.
Okay.
A lot of them were. I consider us pretty much completely recovered from Irma with all of these plantings, but to answer your question, yes, a very large percentage of them, probably about half of these were replacements for trees that we lost. And I think we've made an improvement in the replacement.
So if you'd be good enough, even though we may have received that last time, I don't have it attached in my packet. Would you be good enough to just email that
Sure, no problem.
tree inventory to all of us?
Well,
Thank you.
this list, correct?
Right, the list, just the list, yeah. Any other questions for Brian before we move on?
No.
Okay, on to old business, which are the Flower Award nominations. I believe there were 3 submitted, and hopefully you've had some time to actually do a drive-by and look at them. So I believe that we will be voting on them today. I think 2 of them were for landscapes, and 1 was for a tremendous tree, if I'm not mistaken. So does anyone have any comments on any of them? Brian, do you have anything to add? I'm sure you looked at all of them. Any?
I did. I've looked at all 3. Let me get to the address. The Canterbury Circle nomination I thought was good. It was a townhouse, and they were certainly making the most use of the very limited space they had. There was not only the plants and flowers, but they also had a lot of sculptures and decorations and tables and chair sets mixed in. So I thought it was, quite interesting. The Belmore Terrace nomination I thought was outstanding. There was certainly a lot of color and pop with that property. They had a bougainvillea out front that was in full bloom that kind of arched over the entryway to the house, and a lot of flowering annuals that really added a lot of pop, and it was certainly set apart from the rest of the neighborhood. It looked like they were really making an extraordinary effort. And I talked to the nominee for the 12th Fairway property. It was a multi-trunked sea grape tree. Started out, I looked at some old photos. It actually started out as a hedge. What it appeared to be as a hedge that someone just stopped cutting and they let grow. So there was, it wasn't one tree. It was like a group of hedges that just got large. Certainly, I wouldn't put a sea grape as a preferred tree species out here for the western communities. They're not very resilient in storms. They don't heal very well. Once you cut them, they don't close off and heal. They just get rot and a decay pocket. So it's not my favorite tree in the world. It's great, absolutely great out east by the ocean. It's great on the dunes where it's kept in check with the salt spray and keeps them low. So it's great in its proper environment, but I'm not a huge fan of them out west. I did express that to the person who nominated it, and they appreciated my input. So that's my 2 cents. I'm not standing in the way of the nomination, but I'll leave it to you guys to vote on the 3 nominations. I
have a few comments as well. The first one, on the two addresses on Canterbury Circle. I completely agree with everything that Brian said about the property. The other thing that I noticed that I thought was very positive was there are some air conditioning units in the front yard, and they planted some shrubs between the air conditioning unit and the front view, so trying to screen the mechanical equipment, which is also, I think, very positive. Right now, those shrubs are new, fairly new, it looks like, and maybe a slow-growing variety, but they will eventually fill in. So that'll be a nice screen in front of the mechanical equipment. What I noticed on 12th Fairway, the sea grape tree that Brian was talking about, it is large. It is definitely large. I see it growing into other foliage on the property to the right of it. What this exercise did for me is I actually never had been down 12th Fairway. So it took me to a new part of the village,
Right.
which was interesting. And there were actually, what I noticed as I went past it, exploring the area a little bit, there are some very, very large bottle brush
Yes.
trees on that street that are pretty impressive. So,
Just a couple doors down, that's the biggest bottle brush I've ever seen.
There's,
Yeah, so
there's
maybe-
two together. There's two. One, I think
there's
they're on either
two
side
at
of the
one
driveway.
house, and then there's
I
another home.
I thought
that
they were
it-
beautiful.
So something for us to think about maybe for next year.
Yeah.
Next year's nominations. And then the one on Belmore Terrace, I mean, it's very impressive. Lots of color and definitely sets itself apart from a lot of the other homes on the same street. So obviously that person is putting in a lot of time and effort, and all of the other neighbors and people that pass by get to enjoy it. So I guess what we should do is vote on each of these. We'll first look at the properties on Canterbury. Is there let's see, what are we going to need here?
Well, I'm going to recuse myself from that one because that is so whatever you guys do.
Yes, okay. So it'll just be the four of us voting on this. All those in favor of awarding the Flower Award to these two addresses on Canterbury Circle, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, 3 in favor, 1 opposed. The next property is the one on 12th Fairway for the tremendous tree. The sea grape, also known as Coccoloba uvifera. All those in favor of awarding Flower Award for a tremendous tree for this property, raise your hand in favor. Any opposed?
I oppose that one.
Oh, okay, so 2 in favor, 3 against. And lastly, the property on Belmore Terrace. All those in favor of awarding the Flower Award for this landscape, raise your hand in favor. Unanimous, 5 in favor. So I think that finishes our Flower Award nominations. Next on our agenda is comments.
Well, I did say that I was going to speak in front of the council, and that actually happened at the last council meeting regarding the beautification grant. I don't know if any of you have had a chance to look at that or were watching that on the TV. How about you, Brian? Did you watch it?
I did not see it.
What do you think? I was dressed up, everything. I mean, it was unbelievable.
My apologies.
All right.
I don't get the channel in Wellington.
All right, well, then you can.
Jupiter, sorry.
It is online if you want to look at it, you know. But they were extremely positive about reinstituting a beautification grant. And I think, and I told them about the landscape manual, that it's going to be coming up and something that's going to happen with that. And that's all going to make it very nice. And I was about 6 minutes, but they were extremely positive. Mayor Ann Gerwig was very positive. You should be hearing also from Jim Barnes following up on this for the, so you can expect to hear. I kind of expect him to be at this meeting, but you will be hearing from him to touch base about what they're going to do. How much they're going to put in the kitty for the grant program is something they're going to decide. But I don't see them objecting to this at all. It's going to happen, pretty sure.
All right.
And that's
Good.
it. Yeah, looks like and we're going to be the guys, according to, I suggest if anybody has applications for putting in for grant programs that they can submit it, and the tree board will look at be like an intake for the initial application and make recommendations from there. No objections, they asked a few questions, nothing major, but it all worked out very well. That's it, really.
I just have a question.
Yeah.
Is it going to be the same format as previous, like a matching grant?
I suggested that. I said that it was $1 for $1. And I even gave an example of, say, you had $1,000 worth of work, taking something out, putting something in, you would get like $500 back. And they were just nodded, and they did make a comment that they had a good budget this year, and they went under budget, and they had some discretionary funds. As soon as I heard that, I was able to say, well, see, now you got a place to put that extra money. You know, and they kind of laughed at that because there is no real money problem for them. So if they wanted to give X amount of dollars towards that, they actually would have it. You know, it's up to them what they have to, how they use the funds, But that is one thing that they can do. And I think they were receptive to the fact that, and Ann especially, she had examples, she was giving examples about things that could have been done if she would have had her program, if she would, she would have liked to have seen people do that. She had a lot of suggestions, and she knew more about trees than I had thought. She was very good about that. So I think it's going to work out. We'll see how it goes. But if you want to see it online, it's online. You can go to the Village Wellington agenda. There's a video.
What was the date of the meeting?
The last council meeting was March 27th, I believe, 7 p.m. I'm at timeline 58 minutes. You can see me making a... I think I did okay. I mean, I looked at it afterward. Sometimes you're thinking, I think it was okay. I didn't stumble too much. I gave you a kudo. I told him that Brian, he's a loose cannon. He's all over the street. No, he's very good. He's doing good. Yeah, it's good.
Appreciate it.
Anytime. And that was it.
By the way, Brian, you probably have read over the last month's tree board meeting minutes. I know you weren't able to be here, but David made some commitments on your behalf, so you might want to review that and make sure that
Really?
some minor, just minor, like
Oh.
Brian can update them at the next meeting and things like that. So you might look and see what he said, what he committed you to do.
I'll reread that, go over it with a fine-tooth comb, see what he promised of me. I do have a couple of items regarding Earth Day, if I can share. You have a letter from Michelle Garvey in today's packet.
Yes.
So we did reach out to her right before the meeting today to see if she had any last-minute updates. She said the only thing that she's waiting on from the tree board is if there was a certain book that the board would like Councilwoman Siskin to read at the event. And then she needed to get updated on how many flower awards, which we can do. she's got an update on vendors. Currently, there's 21 vendors, including the Tree Board, the Garden Club, and Art Society. She has Smokey the Bear scheduled. She said that Lisa Ferrano had emailed to ask that we provide no plastic water bottles, but instead put out jugs with paper cups. So we will indeed be doing that. However, the food trucks will probably still have water bottles and soda, but we can't really change that. And we will put out plenty of recycle bins per her request as usual, to try to promote recycling during all of our events, and that's something that, you know, we always do, and I actually just recently talked to a couple of the staff members at Public Works to try to really ramp that up and promote that within the city. So are there any questions regarding any of that, the Earth Day topic, or Earth Arbor Day, rather?
I'm wondering how we're going to choose a title. I guess if any of us have any recommendations for, well, under program on Michelle's list, Councilwoman Siskine will read a short book chosen by the Tree Board for the kids. So we are to choose the book that she will read. I guess if any of us have suggestions, maybe we can send that to Michelle.
Right.
Well,
Is-
we're going to choose a book. Yeah, okay.
Okay. She was here at a meeting several months ago, and that was like a follow-up to a meeting between her, myself, Brian, and some other staff members about some ideas that she had. I think, kind of came about as a result of my conversation with Michelle over some of the things that we had discussed with Councilwoman Siskin. One of the things I came up with, I didn't realize it was, well, I guess she hasn't printed a final program yet. So we do need to make sure that Councilwoman Siskin is going to definitely be there and will be amenable to doing this. But one of my thoughts as far as a book goes, there's it's a children's book called Our Tree Named Steve. Does anybody know of that book? It is actually short enough that you could read it as a poem, you know. It's a story, you know, about a family who built a house, and there was this one exceptionally huge, lovely tree on the property. They made sure to preserve it. And then it's the story of, as the kids grow up, the different the importance this tree plays in their lives. Everything from, at times, holding the laundry when the dryer happened to break down, to the kids camping out under the tree, you know, their first loves, you know, this sort of thing. And then the tree gets sick when I think there was a problem with some sewage or a septic tank. And then the last part is there happens to be a big windstorm. And even though the tree doctor had been able to save Steve from the previous event, from this one he was not able to save the tree. And so it's actually a letter of a father to his grown children, okay, explaining what has happened to Steve. And they look forward to seeing them at their visit this coming weekend, and they will find another tree that has been planted at, you know, a different part of the yard. So I thought it was a very good book, because so many times these days, you know, the kids are learning all about the environmental benefits of trees and what have you, but we don't stop and think about, you know, the other parts of our lives that trees play.
I think that sounds like a great book.
Yeah, take it, let's do it.
Okay.
I think it has a nice moral and a good lesson. And
Sure, I like
It's a happy ending.
so I don't know
Okay.
that we need to officially vote on that. And
it. No, I think it's just a great suggestion, and
Our tree named Steve.
Steve. Mm-hmm.
Very
Okay.
thought-provoking.
Okay.
Very
Tree
good.
named what?
Is that a book that you
Steve?
think we can get at the library?
Oh, I've got it at home, actually.
Oh,
Yeah, so
So-
we can do that.
a tree
Uh-huh.
named Steve.
Can you provide that to Michelle Garvey?
Mm-hmm. I sure can.
Okay. Thank you, Debbie.
Mm-hmm.
And so on the other item, under program, where it says Flower Award winners will be announced, this is the board's responsibility. Tree board or what board? This is the board's responsibility to notify them and present the awards at the event. I know in the past, as chairperson, I was up on stage presenting the awards to the winners, the recipients, but I certainly did not notify them.
No, we,
Okay. Okay, and so will it be the tree board that again presents the actual awards like we've done in the past? Okay. I'll be there, so I can do it.
good.
Do you have those, Brian?
I've got 2 signs.
Well, we had 2 winners. Well, yeah, there's 2 addresses, but I guess on Canterbury, but it can go.
no, it's actually, that was a combined landscape.
And the
that's
2
gonna be
addresses
sh-
are adjacent.
They're adjacent.
Yes.
That was the first time 2 townhouses in that particular community actually combined. Instead of looking like, this is mine, this is yours, they
Right.
actually did something unified, you know?
Okay.
And that was the conception there.
So all we need are 2.
Really,
So it's perfect.
Yeah,
yeah.
All right.
because we did withdraw the one on 12th Fairway.
Yes,
Okay.
that one was not
Okay.
voted in
Very good.
favor of.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
So I think we're pretty set for Earth Day.
Can I ask a question here? Was there any discussion as far as materials that we'll be giving out at the tree board tent as to exactly what those materials would include other than the seedlings themselves? Like, are we going to have the tree pruning brochure? One about not using cypress mulch? Can we put the seedlings in a plastic bag along with these leaflets? I know that's what we did in the past, and it worked out very well. So that way they had one thing to take.
We will have the full gamut of brochures as always. Mr. Richard Kosala.
Yes,
you
that's-
are,
that's me.
You are on with the invasive brochure, which I think was asked for last meeting.
Right.
He can pass that down. We will have that on hand, as well as all the usual brochures, including the cypress mulch, including the tree pruning brochures.
It's really good. I like it a lot.
I'm waiting to see how the seedlings pan out. We're currently in contact with the schools to see how many they want. It's a possibility that they might take up all the little small fire bush. And if they do, I'll have bald cypress seedlings as backup, which we can drop into the little plastic bags for Earth Day.
Great.
I'm also planning on getting some native shrubs in pots for giveaway like we did the last couple of years. And, you know, that's for, you know, people that don't have a whole lot of massive space on their property anymore. So
Okay.
we'll cover all the territory there.
Okay.
Looking back on we're going to have a raffle again, yes? For
Yes.
a tree?
For
Okay.
a tree, it'll be a bald cypress tree.
Okay.
Cypress is the theme of this year.
Uh-huh.
It felt like to me in years past that we weren't promoting that raffle very much, that not all that many raffle tickets were given out, and I think we can focus a little bit more on that so that more people have opportunities. And I'm wondering if at the beginning of the presentation, we could state a time that we're going to draw that raffle ticket. Because it felt like in the past that people just weren't even aware that that was going on, and it was super, super low-key, and even though that's okay, I just think not enough people even knew that there was a tree being raffled off, and I think that's kind of an exciting thing, and if you're a tree nerd, people will want it.
What do they do with the proceeds from the raffle?
It's free, there's no money.
Oh, there's no money.
There's no money.
Oh, you
It's
just get a
It's
ticket.
a ticket just given
Oh.
out for free.
Oh,
Yeah. It's a giveaway.
oh,
Usually we ask if they're interested before we just give them a ticket, because we don't want, someone to end up with a tree they don't want or have space for.
True. Right.
Okay.
Other than that, I think we're pretty good. In our minutes from last month, Debbie and I have committed to be there for the whole thing, or as
Yeah.
best we can.
And I'll be there.
Kay from 5:30 to 7, Charles from 4 to 5, and if anybody else finds they've got some time to be there,
I'll give it a shot. I'll try. I don't know.
you're welcome.
I know.
I did have one other thing, per the board's request. You should have it in today's packet, the annual tree work plan. It was passed last meeting, but just for your reference, you do have the final copy of that, and you'll see that Wellington to begin the tree inventory has been added. And then under partnerships, there's that first bullet regarding supplying the garden club with an annual tree planting report. That's been added as well.
Which I conveyed to the Board of Directors of the Wellington Garden Club, and they were thrilled, particularly the president, because she is the one who is responsible each year for providing that report. And Twig Morris, of course, sang your praises, Brian, and said that in the past she had emailed you, and like in 3 minutes you had that information back to her, so.
I always keep a spreadsheet running in case there's any questions.
Right, thank you.
Very easy to provide the information that way.
I have another question.
Oh, go ahead.
No,
I was just going to ask, is there a particular time of year that you plan on bringing that annual report out? Like at the end of the year, or maybe in March when we're doing the work plan?
I usually do it at the end of the calendar year.
Okay.
But, like I mentioned, if anyone wants to know the current number, it's a click away. So if they want to report in a rolling calendar year, or, past 6 months, or any case, we can give the garden club the number.
Well, for your info, I believe that tree report is normally, the deadline is sometime in March. It just recently passed, but it would be up to the garden club to reach out to you at the time that they need it, to just say, could you please
Right.
provide us the year-to-date? And I think it's really just a culmination of each of the reports you give us on a quarterly basis.
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
And they always just call me, and I give them the number over the phone. It's pretty easy.
Okay. And then I see that the other item that we requested be added or amended on here has also been added, which I think was Debbie's suggestion about the,
The tree inventory?
Yeah, the tree
Right.
inventory.
I believe that's going before council next meeting to be approved. So we'll complete a partial inventory this calendar year, this fiscal year, and then we'll apply for a grant to get funding to complete the inventory next year. So we'll get probably about, I'm guessing, 75% of it completed this year, roughly. And then next year we'll be able to complete the remainder if we get the funding from the state.
And it's going before council when?
This coming council meeting
Meeting, okay.
this month. That was the latest word from purchasing. I'm not sure if anything's changed.
I have one more thing.
Joan?
I don't know if it's appropriate, but during Arbor Day, maybe that would be one of the places where we could mention to the public that we do have in place a program to plant a tree in memory of someone, if anyone's interested, since it really isn't something that we promote or we advertise about, but maybe that's a good venue to just, I don't know, mention it or have a little information about it for the public.
I think that's a great idea. I don't know, could we have the forms there? I mean,
Sure, we
as
can
a
bring 'em.
handout.
Bring a few flyers and have them there at the booth.
Right. I think that's a very good idea.
Yeah, that would be a
The
good idea.
commemorative tree program.
Right.
Very good idea.
I have a question about something I have recently observed. Driving down 441 in front of Olympia, I've noticed that those trees have been pruned dramatically in a way that I don't think is the acceptable way. They
What kind of trees were they? Those are ficus trees, weren't they?
Gumbo limbo.
No, ficus,
No.
aren't they?
no,
For
not the
most
ones
part,
at the
I think
edge.
they're ficus
I think they're
also, but
ficus.
I kind of see that as the quintessential hat racking method of trimming, and
You know,
just
I
would-
saw that too, and sometimes I wonder if you could even put ficus in a category of being improperly treated. It was improperly planted to begin with. It should have been there. I don't know why they planted that to begin with.
Well,
Well, I don't know that they're improperly planted per se, but I can tell you that in our current code, ficus are exempt from the hat racking and percent canopy removed during pruning rule.
really,
Yes,
Why?
they are.
Nobody wants to
They are
protect them.
specifically called out as being exempt from those rules. I've
Interesting.
seen I have seen the trees as well myself, and I know Debbie has too.
Right.
I figured you hadn't missed them, Brian.
You can't miss it.
Oh, they look awful.
Yeah.
I actually personally have had several people inquire to me, you're a member of the tree board, right? Have you seen blah, blah, blah? Yes.
well, Brian, are the tree surgeons that do the kind of work, do they have a continuing education course where they're taught the specifics of what we want done?
I do not know that that particular company has done that, but I'm sure they did the work as requested by the HOA.
Okay, and so that was an exception because you say those were they were
Ficus.
Ficus.
ficus trees.
Right.
Because I thought it was really nice that they put a picture of the 10% reduction in height and the fact that you could reduce the weight on the tree internally. And they put pictures here of what to do and what not to do. And I thought that picture was worth 1,000 words. Did you say?
Sure.
And I can understand why they took more than 10% off the top. They took maybe 15%, I thought. But they did reduce the weight on the trunks by taking the internal branches, but it looked like they took a little bit too much.
Well, you know what? A ficus tree to begin with has a lousy root system. It's a surface root system. Whether they took off 5% more than the 10% allowance, it's still a lousy root system that, in a wind, is still gonna go.
Yeah. I remember years ago, it wasn't Hurricane Andrew, it may have been Hurricane David, I'm not sure. So this was back in the 70s, sometime after 76, I know that. Being down in Miami and seeing lots of ficus trees overturned. The reason they were overturned was simply because the roots that would normally be growing down from the branches had not been permitted to grow. So they didn't have those extra stabilizing roots, and they just went over everywhere. And you can see, I think the same thing's going to happen here someday. Those trees are so tall, they don't have any of the supporting roots, and
You know what? It's like Brian says, that's the HOA's problem. You know, that's their cost to clean up. You know, we got our own problems, you know.
yeah.
Now they got theirs.
I did submit my thoughts on the landscape revisions by email to Mr. Flincham, and also sent a copy to Brian and some of the other staff over there. So I don't know what's going to happen, but that was one of the things I mentioned, was that I did not feel that non-native trees of certain species should be exempt. I felt that that really does create confusion, because you are trying to educate people no hat racking. So when you exempt other species, you're just creating confusion, when we all know that no matter what, hat racking simply isn't good. So that was my thought, and that's what I said.
Well, along that same vein, unless you really recognize the differences in tree species, so if nothing was exempt, then you would have to employ the same method of trimming for all trees. Otherwise, you have to absolutely know that that is a ficus that is exempt, and you can cut it a different way than another tree. So that would alleviate the confusion, as you say. So.
Because, could I say that? I was talking to a tree surgeon the other day, and he said he'd turned down an X number of dollars of work because they wanted him to hat rack trees. So it's very difficult for the people in the field to turn down work based on our criteria. And there are good vendors, and then there are other vendors that are taking and doing what they have to do to stay in business. So I really think that we need to have some kind of education system or certification system for the people that do that kind of work. Because it's very expensive work when they do that.
Well, you know, it's up to the person that buys a service to make sure that guy's licensed and insured.
Right,
I mean,
that's
I
important.
can't, you know, you can't dictate to people who they hire to cut your lawn. And if you tell that person, cut that, you don't know what you're doing, you know. So I have to ask questions to learned people all the time, you know, even though I think I know something, I'm not quite 100% sure. You know, there's a lot of people in the village. You know, when you get to HOAs, everybody's hiring the right vendor. Oh, he's got to be licensed, he's got to be insured. And then there's like homeowners, they just hire whoever, the kid on the street, you know, they don't care.
Well, when you're looking for a tree trimmer, forester, what is it? The good ones, really good ones, I guess, try to be ISA certified.
Yeah.
And I don't believe they're taught to do hat racking, period.
That's why they won't do it.
You
They
know,
will say
exactly
that's hat
like you were
racking.
saying.
Yeah, they
You
won't
know,
do
no
it.
matter what the tree species. And I think even in this case over here at Olympia, where that was done, where you start getting those little round, you know, as the tree grows out at the top, well, you're just going to make it top heavy.
Yeah, the tree can start to look like an umbrella. It goes up, and then it's just like an umbrella. And that might be hurricane resistant, but it does look over trimmed, or almost to the point where it's bonsai'd.
Well, when it's top heavy, that's not going to be hurricane resistant. I think that's just going to push it right over.
Well, when a tree goes over, it has to do with the liquid limit of the soil that the roots are in. If the tree is planted in a swale or where the water, the liquid limit of the soil gets liquidy, any tree will go over in a 30-mile-an-hour wind.
If it gets too wet, yeah.
So the trees that are planted on higher mounds have a better chance than the tree that's planted down in a soggy, boggy place, because we get a lot of rain. With a hurricane, we get 10, 20 inches of rain, and everything's going to hit the liquid limit, and everything's going over, no matter how you trimmed it. That's what the arborist told me. Because I have a big problem in my front yard. I allowed a hedge plant like the sea grapes that were a hedge to grow, and I bonsai'd the hedge plant, which was a podocarpus, into a tree. This tree now is very top heavy, extremely heavy, and the one in the backyard went boom, right over. So I had to I'm actually having to hedge a tree. It's a difficult procedure for them to do that. But there's a lot of weight on some hedge plants, like that sea grape you were saying. At one time, that was a hedge. They let it grow into a tree. There are a lot of hedges that are really if they don't trim them, will turn into trees. So that there's a big problem there for the tree. The arborists have to, the tree surgeons need to know and be updated on each and every species almost.
That's their job.
Ficus is a prime example of that, was a hedge, and it's a ginormous
Now
tree.
It's a tree hedge. It's literally a noise barrier. It's a hedge that's turned into trees for noise abatement. So that's a complex issue. But I really do like the fact that they had pictures. Pictures are worth 1,000 words.
They are.
We offer the tree pruning brochure. We offer the how to hire an arborist brochure. And it's certainly very possible to reduce the height and spread of a tree without hat racking it.
Okay.
So
Maybe
that's
you
all I
need
have.
to, I was going to say, maybe you could do a presentation for homeowner association boards to educate them that this could be done. So when they're hiring their arborist and so forth to do this, they can say, we don't want any more hat racking. We do want it to look more aesthetically pleasing.
Brian, all you got to do is show up to about 300 different associations. You pick one every Wednesday. Whatever. You come over. Coffee will be waiting
There
for you.
there are good companies out there. I'm not going to mention any names, but just yesterday one was out trimming the home next door to me and did a beautiful job, reducing the tree pretty much equally all the way around and thinning the inside branches and all of that. They did a really good job. You pay for their expertise, but it's probably worth it, especially if you have a mature tree that you really like and you want to keep it through severe weather. So
Right, because landscaping is expensive.
it is.
Well, I'm very glad that we had this discussion, because now's the time to start thinking about trimming for the next hurricane season. And there are people out there that are going to be facing these issues.
Yeah, like we talked
So-
about, I think, last month. If you just wait another month or two and you call for your estimate, it's going to be a lot more than if you do it now. I think you'll get some better pricing also. Does anybody else have any other comments? Motion to adjourn?
A motion?
Richard motions to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Charles second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimously passed. We are adjourned.